Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. Now, most of us have probably heard that phrase, whether it be from the classic fairy tale Rapunzel or from that of the more recent movie from a certain mouse company. Well, this book is a retelling of that story called Zel. You may be asking though, is Zel a good book, or should this book be locked away in a tower forever? Well, sit right back, grab a nice cozy snack or drink, and let's get into it. First of all, though, hello, I'm Rainbow Heart's Villain Thoughts, a book nerd who loves gay romance and stories that are retellings of classic villains or simply backstories to these villains that make them more human. Now, if you want to support my channel and you like the reviews I give, make sure to like this video and make sure to subscribe just in case you want to keep up with future videos. And of course, turn on the notification bell and set it to all posts, not just custom, as custom may mean you won't get most of my videos. That being said, we will now be getting into the intro of this book. This book is the second book in the grim, dark fairy tale gay romance retelling series. Now that's grim, G-R-I, capital M, capital M. This book follows the previous book, Little Red Riding Hood, by T.J. Rose, and it's a retelling of the classic story of Rapunzel. This book is written by Amanda Meuwissen. Now, if I missaid her last name, I apologize. Amanda is the author of two other books I've previously reviewed on the channel. The first of those two being The Last Courtesan of Olympus, the first of her three-part Lover of the Gods series. And it's kind of spin-off slash standalone novel to that book, Apollo's Courtesan, or Courtesan of Apollo. It's been a hot minute since I've read that book. Both of which left me wanting more out of them. Though I kept telling myself there was more to this author, and I wanted to see what they could do with a good book. So, of course, naturally, the question I had on my mind when I saw this book was, is it going to be good? Was this going to be the book I've been craving for from Amanda? And the answer just might surprise you. So, I also want to give a brief summary if you'd like that. If not, you can skip to the next part of the review. So, the brief summary is as follows. Zel and their parents are members of the Thieves Guild. Zel, who was raised to be a girl, has one purpose in life: kill the sorcerer, who he was doomed to wed when his parents were caught stealing from him years ago, before Zel was even born. But once Zel comes face to face with this dreaded soul-sucking sorcerer, Zel's mission might not be so easy as he intended. Now, with all my reviews, I give a heat warning and a content warning. The heat warning for this one is 3 out of 5. Meaning, in this book, there are open door heat scenes. If you don't know what that means, it means there are detailed scenes of adult interaction with another adult in a non-child appropriate manner. I have to find creative words because YouTube is very picky. And those scenes are in detail. But in my opinion, and the reason it got a 3 instead of a 4 or 5 is because these particular scenes were not very scandalous or often. There are only 2 scenes that have full scenes themselves, full interaction, and one that has not a full interaction, but half an interaction, if you get my drift. And these scenes are not the main point of the book. And I said not as scandalous because Amanda has written some very heated gay romance books with Last Courtesan of Olympus and Apollo's Courtesan. And let me tell you, those books were scandalous. But this one isn't. So, if you thought those books were a little too much, Zel is just right, hopefully for you. Next up is the content warning. I give this so you, the viewer, can know if this book is something that you're going to be okay with when it comes to certain details, or if it's something for you to turn away and not waste your money on. Which, for the record, no judgment. If any of these set you off in a sense of uncomfortable or just something you're not okay with, I completely understand. And by reading this book, I'm not saying I am gun ho, yeah, about certain parts of this book, especially certain parts of of this content warning. I just want to give this so you can be aware in case this could be triggering for you. So the content warning of this book is magic and curses, soul sucking, murder, kind of cross dressing, strong language, and a brief appearance of slavery of a magical creature. Or not magical creature, magical race. The last thing is not the main point of the book and happens at the very beginning for a few minutes. Um, like maybe not even a paragraph. Um, maybe a paragraph, maybe less. I still want to put that in there though, because I know a lot of people that is very triggering, so I wanted to put that there. Also, the quote unquote cross dressing. That one's a little harder to have as a content warning because at first it kind of is cross dressing, but at the end of the book, it's not. That may be a little confusing, but it makes sense if you read the book. But just in case you're not okay with that subject matter there, I wanted to put that there as well so you can steer clear of this book if you would rather do that. All right, with my 2 warning sections out of the way, let's get into the setting slash world building of Zel. So this book takes place in the same kingdom as the previous book, Little Red Riding Hood, the kingdom of Falchaver, which I'm probably missaying. It's Falchovari, in case you want to try to say it yourself. And this kingdom, as stated in Little Red Riding Hood, is ruled by the evil queen. And if you're thinking, is it that evil queen? Glass coffin, 7 little miners. Yep, that evil queen. Now this book takes place in a medieval fairy tale type world. Meaning castles, queens, kings, no technology, archers, candlelight, that kind of thing. And this book is taking place either before, during, or after the events of Little Red Riding Hood. I couldn't really determine that by the book itself. But it is the second book in the series. So it may be going on at the same time or after, probably not before. Um, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'm gonna put that out there. Um, when it comes to the detail of the world building, however, it's not going to be anything grand, but it is better than the last book. In this, compared to the last book where we mostly got woods, we get the Thieves Guild, a little bit of the town, not much, the Sorcerer's Tower, where majority of the story takes place, and a tavern for a little short bit. Um, but really, the tower is the only thing that's kind of flushed out. Like I said, though, due to the story mainly taking place there. So if you're looking for a massive world building type situation, like say Lord of the Rings or other, I was going to say one, but the author is very controversial, so I won't say that one, but something to do with wizards. And I want to say, comment section, don't talk about that, please. I will not. My comment section is not a war zone. But anyway, kind of like those that have a wide world already planned out in one book, you're not going to get that. However, for a book being in a series written by different authors, taking place in the same area, the same time, or around the same time as each book, I think that Lord Riding Hood and Zel have done a good part of kind of already building this world together. And I think each book is going to add to that instead of taking away or damaging it. The world itself will become bigger and bigger as we read these books. Um, so yeah. Next up is the tone, the theme, and the emotional impact. So let's start off with tone. So the tone of this book definitely shifts as time goes on. From what I've understood, most good books do. The beginning tone is a very serious and cold, dark tone. With Zell, I mean, before that, it's kind of a scared but hopeful tone. But with Zell, it's kind of serious and cold because they only have one mission, and that is to end the sorcerer's life. Um, but as the story goes on, it goes from cold and serious to a desperate pining between Zell and the sorcerer Ulrich, and a fear of losing each other, or losing the other person by both men or both people. So yeah. um, theme. The theme of this book was interesting, I have to say. I feel the theme of this book is discovering who you are and defining who you are and not letting anyone else kind of tell you you're this, you're that. Um and that can apply for anything really, but with this it's specifically gender. So, if that's not something you're okay with or interested in, again, you might want to skip Zell. But the theme there, I really liked it. Because I feel like in today's society, we're very prone to kind of follow everyone else. So, and what they tell us to be. So, a book that's kind of telling you, don't do that, define yourself. I think it's really cool. Now, the emotional impact. When reading this book, I felt intrigued by the secrets the sorcerer was keeping. This was a very mysterious type of character, one that was interesting to say the least. Um, they were very secretive, very powerful, and I wanted to know more about the sorcerer. So I was very intrigued, interested. But as the time went on, I felt bad for Zell, having to live this life that was planned out for them since the day they were born. And I really wanted Zel and Ulrich to get their happy ending. I also really hated the leader of the Thieves Guild. He's a slime ball. But why he is, and whether or not Zel and Ulrich get their happy ending, well, you'll either have to read the book to find out, which is advisable, or let me know in the comments below if you want a book discussion / spoiler filled review of Zel. This review itself is a spoiler free review, which means no spoilers. So, yeah, if you want spoilers, let me know and I'll make a follow up video to this one. Otherwise, I won't get into much detail about those things. So with tone, emotional impact, and theme being done, let's get into the pacing of this book. The pacing was a bit of an issue. It was kind of fast in certain areas, and that's because the book was definitely plot heavy compared to character heavy. Meaning the main driving force of this book was the plot, not really the characters themselves. Which gave the characters very little to no time to really shine and develop themselves to the reader, compared to the main plot, where everything really seemed to be pushing to the inevitable end. There was no real, hey, this is this character, and let's dive into this character. It was kind of a, here's the character, here's that character, how they interact, the end. Kind of situation. But I mean, the book itself is, I think, 258 pages long, and that's counting content, like the chapters, the author's notes are about the author, the other pages about the other books in the series, other books Amanda Meuwissen has written. It includes the cover. Outside the cover, there's a black and white cover, and it also includes a map of this world. So yeah, so there's not a full 258 pages, but still, um, I kind of wish there had been better character development with these characters. Um, just saying. Now that we've gotten pacing out of the way, let's talk about character analysis. Now we'll be talking about Zal and Ulrich. Or Ulrich? I'm not really sure how to say his name, so I apologize. Um, so first of all, let's talk about Zel. So Zel is a member of the Thieves Guild and the child of the Pied Piper's music shop owners, who are fellow Thieves Guild members who kind of got Zel into it because he was born into it, and they, kind of got Zel stuck with his fate of marrying Ulrich. Um, Zel was born male, but forced to pretend to be a female in order for the deal with the sorcerer to be held up. Now, when I say pretend, I mean Zel didn't really feel they were a female, but they were told, they had to behave and act and talk like a female in order to trick the sorcerer. out of fear that if the sorcerer found out Zel was male, born male, that it'd be over. They'd be done for. The sorcerer would call off the deal, suck out their souls, and take Zel with them. So yeah. Um Zel is quick-witted and a trained killer. Quick on their feet and very quick with their dagger. Uh, reading this book, Zel is a very highly trained killer. Excuse me. Zel is this type of character who, since they were old enough to walk, had a dagger in their hand, was trained how to fight, how to block, how to sneak up on his opponents, how to become one with the shadows. Just all in all, how to be a good assassin for the Thieves Guild. But because of this, Zel was kind of determined how they would be from the beginning. Not really given another choice in the matter. Um, Zel also struggles with their identity. Whether or not Zel identifies as male, as they were born as, female as they were raised to be, or something else. I really like Zel, to be honest. Zel is this character who is very interesting. Zel is Zel embodies a hunger to do what is right, what they're told to do, while at the same time having this deeper hunger to oppose what they're told to do, to be themselves, even if society and those around them may disagree. But the one downside, I think, is Zell immediately pegs other people as they would not accept me, they wouldn't want me for who I am, instead of giving people a chance, which I feel is a double-edged sword with Zell. And it though it is, of course, something that's understandable with today and people in the real world, and can sometimes be a safer bet to survive and protect oneself. But, you know, that's how you want to view it with Zell. Um, honestly. So next up, we're talking about Ulrich. Ulrich. Um, Ulrich is a elven dark sorcerer. He is a being older than even the evil queen, who is said to have ruled for at least 1,000 years, and is known for being a real soul sucker. Now, Ulrich, a lot of his past isn't really known at the beginning of the book, but as time goes on, we kind of understand how he got his power, how he became who he is, especially a feared, dangerous sorcerer. He's dark and foreboding, and one heck of a powerful sorcerer. He's definitely terrifying. When I think of Ulrich, I kind of think of Nestafasu. I think as I say his name, the vampire. This dark, intimidating, terrifying, bony creature. Um, but unlike the vampire who's bald, he has hair that's kind of like a galaxy or a night sky. Um, you'll have to read the book to understand what I'm talking about, but it's very peculiar. Um, Ulrich is also very territorial. Stepping near his tower or the forest around his tower is a sure thing to get your soul sucked out. He does not like people trespassing. Well, he does, but you probably wouldn't like it. Ulrich is a cool character. He embodies regrets. He regrets how he gained his power. Um, and he, is cunning. He's at times almost conniving. And yeah, Ulrich is just all around a mystery until the book progresses and more is revealed about Ulrich. Um, Out of the two, I think I prefer Zel over Ulrich just because Zel is a bit more interesting, but Ulrich, is a cool character. It's just I feel like they're kind of one-dimensional compared to Zel at times. With character analysis out of the way, let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this book. Now, a big strength of this book is, of course, its connection to a classic fairy tale. Zel is the retelling slash reimaging of Rapunzel, and is an interesting one at that. Due to its fairy tale connection, Zel is already going to find a spot on some bookshelves. Now, I say that because there are people who collect dark fantasy books, dark fairy tale retellings, even if they don't read them. You do have book collectors who just collect books and don't read them. And this being a dark fairy tale retelling, I could see some people picking up this book and putting it on their shelf or in their little collection and just enjoying the presence of this book. And of course, if you are a reader and into that stuff, it's going to find its way on your bookshelf probably. Um, but hopefully only adult bookshelves because this book is not for kids in any way. um, Another strength I feel about this book is there are different types of magic. Unlike Red Riding Hood, this book features a magic user from the very get-go and magical items. Um, it's pretty nice to have more detail of magic. Not to mention someone you'd never guess also has magic. I won't say who, but it was a big surprise. And the last strength in this book takes place in an already set up world. The structure and main surrounding setting are already there, including the tower, which was mentioned in the previous book. Red and Wim pass by a tower with a body outside of it looking devoid of life as if its soul was sucked out. That is the Sorcerer's Tower. I think they even mention that in that book that they both know whose tower it is. Not by name, but the sorcerer. So it was mentioned in that book, which is really cool. Um, Even though author Amanda does add to the area of the story, it's still something familiar if you've read Little Red Riding Hood by T.J. Rose, or any of the other grim capital MM dark fairy tale gay romance retellings before this one. So it is a world that is kind of familiar from the first book, just added on to, built on, like I said previously, I believe. So there's that. Now, however, it's time for the weaknesses of this book. One of the weaknesses, and the only real weakness I could think of, is the fact that there is simply no real time for Zel and Ulrich to fall for each other. Um, it almost seems forced simply for the plot's sake and nothing else. Honestly, I don't even think they know each other that long before they start falling for each other, and it's like, why? Where is the romance? Where is the passion? Where is the swooning, the courtship? It kind of wasn't there. It really wasn't there, and it was a bit disappointing. It took away from some of what makes these characters feel real. And it's a pretty big shame because I like the story. It's just the characters were kind of flat at times. And that's the weakness. Now, with strengths and weaknesses out of the way, what are my final thoughts on this book? This is not the end of the video. If you're new here, this is just the final thoughts I have on the book. I think in the end, this book is a really good book. And it's very befitting to be a part of this series. But it can also be read as a one-off rather than a part of a bigger series. I think any of these books so far can be read as a one-off, a single book, instead of a part of a bigger series, and Zel is a part of that as well. So if you're looking for a one and done book, despite it being part of a series, Zel, Red Riding Hood both, they are definitely books that are appropriate for that. But if you want to read the entire series that does connect, it's fun. I'm doing that, and hopefully you would enjoy that as well. Miss Amanda really surprised me. I'm not gonna lie. This book made me happy. It's a really good book, and it made me so happy I didn't give up on them as an author because Zel is a good book. Again, the characters are kind of flat, but it is a whole different ball field compared to Last Courtesan of Olympus and Apollo's Courtesan. A whole different ball field, and I really love it for that. Yeah, so time for my rating or ranking of this book. Not ranking, rating. Why did I put ranking? Anyway, I gotta give this book a 4 out of 5 hearts. The characters were a bit flat, but the story itself was really good. The detail was there. And I think all in all, it was a good book. It was a good book. So 4 out of 5 Rainbow Hearts. I would have given it a 4.5 if the characters had been more detailed and more characteristic, but it is what it is. That being said, let's get into my recommendation. Would I recommend this book? Yes or no? And honestly, I would. If you're a fan of Amanda's writing and books in general, then this is a good book for you. I feel like it's different from her Lover of the Gods series, but it's a good kind of difference. It's definitely one of her best and a truly exciting book from beginning to end. And if you weren't a fan of some of her other books, I'd still recommend giving this one a try still, like I did. Rather that be reading a little sample of the book, and deciding or getting the book when it's on sale. Now, I personally get my books digitally because, for one, typically it's cheaper, and for two, I just don't have the physical space anymore for physical books, unfortunately. And I got this book for about $5 digital. So, that's a really good price for a book. So yeah. You can get it cheap digitally. I don't know how much the audiobook is. I know some people prefer the audiobook. And there is an audiobook. There's an audiobook for Zel, and there's an audiobook for Little Red Riding Hood by TJ Rose. I want to state that there are audiobooks, official audiobooks at that, for both books. In case you're interested in the audiobook, no shame there if you're more of an audiobook compared to a physical reader. Completely understandable. Now, if you've never read Oh, sorry. If you've never read anything by them, by Amanda, I think you'll still love this book. You don't have to know Amanda as an author to love this book. If you're into dark fairy tale retellings and dark gay fantasy romance, I think you'll like this book. I think this book kind of scratches that itch, not perfectly, but just enough to really connect. Just enough to leave you wanting the next book in the series or the next read of this type of genre. But not in the sense of not remembering this book later. Um, of course, as long as you're okay with more than just gay representation. Again, Zel kind of deals with gender stuff, gender identity. So it's not just gay representation in this book, there's also that. Um, Now, you might not like this book, and I wouldn't recommend this book if one, you're more into character driven books over plot, because again, this is a plot heavy book, not a character heavy book. And for two, you may also not like this book if you're going into it and expecting a pure, close to original, faithful retelling of the classic story with just Rapunzel being born male and gay. Nope, that is not this book. It takes the original story and builds off of it and changes a good bit of the original story massively. It's just, Zel is Rapunzel. That's about it. And there's a tower. um, Otherwise, this isn't really a faithful retelling of the classic tale. Um, it's Zel. It's not the original Rapunzel. So, yeah. If you're expecting that, you're not gonna like this book. Just saying. Um, all right. Now, with all that being said, you know how I'd recommend it. If you're into that kind of stuff, you're gonna love this book. Or if you like Amanda's writing or other books, you're gonna love Zel. But if you're looking for character-driven or pure classic retelling, this is not the book for you. And I'd recommend going elsewhere. And that being said, it's outro time. So, real quick, and listen to the outro fully. Do not forget to like and subscribe as they help the channel. And yeah, don't forget to comment down below if Zel is a pickup or a put down for you. Whether or not you're going to pick up this book and read it, or you're going to kind of keep it on the shelf and walk away. Also, again, let me know in the comments below if you want a spoiler review / book discussion of Zel. And if you want kind of a book discussion, please feel free to ask any questions you have about this book. And if I can, I will answer them as best I'm able to in a follow-up book discussion video. And I try to keep it to this book, but you can kind of say, how does it connect with Little Red Riding Hood, that kind of thing, how deeply it connects to it, stuff like that. Just don't ask me flat out in the comment section what happened to Red, because he's not in this book. That's the previous book. Also, the reason I told you to wait is because I'm going to reveal the next book in the series that I'll be reviewing when I'm done reading it. I'm currently reading it, and that is Hansel and Gerhardt. Or Gerhardt. I don't know how to say it improperly. A retelling of Hansel and Gretel. This book is definitely controversial. and it's not a pairing I like to read normally, and I am still a little uncomfortable reading this book, to be honest. Um, they're not blood related. I will say that. They're not brothers by blood. So yeah, if you want to skip the next review, that's perfectly for that. And by next review, I mean the next book in the series. I completely understand. And after that book review of Hansel and Gerhardt, I will also be reading and reviewing The Shoemaker and the Elves. I know nothing about that book except it's the fourth book in the series. And it's not does not cover the same topic as Hansel and Gerhardt. So yeah. But also Hansel and Gerhardt is a book that, according to the warning content in the book, is the darkest book in the series because Hansel and Gretel is arguably the darkest story the Brothers Grimm ever tackled in the original fairy tales they did. So yeah, I am definitely in for it. Also, the next book review on this channel, excuse me, will probably be Don't Feed the Vampire. I don't want to give too much away about that, but it's a book I actually enjoyed. Um, but it could be another book. I'm not going to set in stone, Don't Feed the Vampire, but that one's also going to be reviewed at some point. But yeah, you're gonna have to wait a little bit for the next book in this series. And again, if this is the first review you're seeing of this series, please check out my Little Red Riding Hood by TJ Rose book review, which is the first book in the series and tells the story of Little Red as a grown man traveling with the big bad wolf Wim. And maybe, just maybe, well, something blossoms between those two. But will it be enough to conquer what they have to do at the end? Even if that's two separate things. Make sure to check out that review if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe, stay cozy, and stay reading. Bye.